Welcome, Patrick.
Welcome.
A big
Hello.
CNFT news welcome to you on this awesome Thursday.
I gotta say, your audience is very raucous. Very impressed by that.
They're pretty wild.
I like your word. I like your use of that word.
Yeah,
And by the way,
absolutely.
this whole
You made
intro,
me
everything,
laugh.
I mean, I've seen this before, but the new site looks great, by the way, and
Thank
this
you.
is legit. So,
Yeah,
I got a little more nervous when I saw the intro video.
Good, that's awesome.
What we were hoping for.
But you
I'm so
shouldn't
glad to hear it.
obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously, like one thing about our show that we always want to be is like we just want to have fun with the people that are on,
Oh, yeah.
and as
Exactly.
always, just
Oh no,
enjoy.
I have watched before. I'm not. This is not necessarily new,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's I'm very aware. It's a fun place to be.
cool.
Thank you. The audience is enjoying the sound effects. The real audience, not the fake one that we have here
Mhm.
in the computer.
They're made of Tyler's robots.
Yeah, so glad to have you here. I mean, Ada Cafe has been a growing force
Oh yeah.
in the community.
And a very important, and I mean it's part of why we were inspired to do Twitter Spaces is because of people like y'all, and this discussion is exactly what we need to keep the community
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really, all these Twitter spaces were happening, and people like, Hero and Epoch did Cardano over coffee, which grew, and then Cardano Nights and Bullish Dumpling and Big Joe just came out of nowhere and took kind of things by
Yeah.
storm a little bit. But you're going there you see it. So you'll see we're trying to do two things, but before we talk about any specific shows, it was one of these moments, and I think it's Flawed. If you know Flawed.
Oh
and
yeah,
he
he's
does
at
that.
my balance balloon every week.
Oh yeah.
Really, I love his openness. It's amazing.
And I think what was cool is like all of us got started at different times, right? So like I've only really been around since June. I happened to see an interview on Hishoshi with Alex. Yeah, well I know it's a long time in crypto land, but there's a whole
Yeah.
era. What's funny is there's a whole era of history of Cardano that I'm just kind of learning over time, right? And so everyone kind of came on, and I hadn't really been involved or engaged in ecosystems like Ethereum or anything like that. So I got here, found Unsigned Algorithms. I was like, oh, that really hit personally. Got in, and Epoch's End was this show that was really like I think the first one. So Cardano Guru and Cardano 420, and they've been really doing a great job of every Epoch's End coming up and just talking, and it became this great convening spot. And it's how a lot of us got to learn Cardano, got to point in the right direction, and we started
Very
thinking
well
about
done from the beginning too.
yeah. And we started thinking about, well, what happens in a year from now when everything's going? And, most people aren't on Cardano. Like 99% of the world isn't here. So how do we
Believe in
make
it?
sure we start? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we try to say, like, how do
I
we,
know.
how do we help get it together and support these folks who are doing this great stuff all of their own time, and also not everybody's building on their own. So that was sort of the beginning, and kind of snowballed from there, and lots of things happened since. But that's sort of the initial impetus for it all.
I mean, and it's so amazing when you're building together. I mean, we're even just noticing on a small scale with at the news, like having every person doing so much to help. It really it makes it all happen so much more effectively.
Yeah. And like the
Yeah.
more
We
people
can
you bring
inspire
on,
each
like
other, and
yeah.
Well, it's and it's one of these tensions that we have, right? Because with like decentralization, you're like, okay, we can't centralize anything, but then you look around and you're like, but we can't all make everything on our own independently. Like that doesn't make any sense.
That's
So.
not right. Yeah, it's not even right. Yeah.
So but it's been fun. It's been fun to kind of do it. I think at the beginning it started with these Twitter Spaces, and we've kind of got three pillars, right? We've got this governance side, we got technology, so the Epoch blockchain, so Epoch Pool and his two folks that work with him, and then the Twitter Spaces and all those folks have their own kind of creative and community side. So we've got community, we've got technology, and they've got sort of governance, and we're still at the beginning of figuring each pillar out, but.
I mean, that sounds very much like Cardano in general.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Totally.
And I think that's
Well,
a
I
good
mean,
model.
but
to be
it's a
working
good
with.
model.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree
Yeah.
here. We
And
all are on board.
Yeah, and it shows how it's really cool how the things on top affect above affects below. You know, like we all are prone to be interested in that because of the reasons we were attracted to this in the
Yeah.
first place, and I think that's
It's kind of a passive
gonna help
leadership
us.
sort
Yeah.
of that's happening just by Cardano and IOHK doing what they're doing, the way they're doing
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's encouraging people just by existing and being successful to pay attention.
By example.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very cool.
For sure. It's
So-
yeah, it's definitely interesting. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to hear what you're most excited about right now.
Yeah.
With Ada Cafe and just what.
Yeah. So another, I would love. So one of the things that I'll tell you, there's two things. So one is I think just the recognition that the kind of Twitter Spaces hosts had. We were saying, hey, we appreciate and support what you're doing. We're trying to help you out, and they're just genuine appreciation for it. That was really good because they do it and they do it every day or every week, and so that was really exciting. The second piece,
hosts getting recognition.
just like them
being
getting that and
happy.
feeling recognized, right? Like, hey, we realize you're doing this on your own, and we realize you've just been doing it week after week or day after day.
It's huge. Yeah.
The second thing was the launch of the Cafe Founders Token, which is the Epoch Clock, which is a new type of NFT called the non-fungible visualization. And we are at the very, very beginning journey of that. And I was actually talking to Ava Ginger, and I think you know Ava.
Oh,
right?
I love
Yeah.
Her and I were talking about maybe coming back sometime and talking just about non-fungible visualizations because I think it's its own topic. So that was an exciting one back in December. And then now what we're working on is really like the next steps, right? So the exciting part is we kind of got it structured. We got it put together. You got the website. You got to get the foundation laid. Now it's really kind of building it out from here. So it's kind of a combination of what we think we're going to do with each of those pillars. But then in addition, kind of getting that feedback, right? So we've been asking from hosts or patrons or whoever, like, what do you want to see? And some of those benefits we want to get to folks that join. But more importantly, just keep improving those community spaces because that's probably the most important thing we all can do that you all are doing a great job of already. But it's the more of those we have and the more places that people can feel like they're getting good information and connecting with folks, the better. And so I think that part's exciting because and there's two. I can reveal one thing here. This is a news show, right? So breaking news.
Please, we love
Breaking news.
So so one of the benefits of if you're a patron is maybe some early access or at least some sort of benefit to some NFT art that's coming. And so we have our first sort of person, and we're really focused on getting new people in, right? So not necessarily just folks who are already here, though we would love to talk to you as well. Part of it is getting existing folks and saying, hey, you're an artist in the real world, the non-Cardano world, because Cardano's a real world too. The non-Cardano world, and making sure they feel that they can get onboarded and shown the ropes a little bit. So there's an artist that we identified, and she has some really unique art that she does by herself. It's kind of fine art, so to speak,
bring
in
the
a traditional
ladies.
sense. Yeah, so it's not only a new artist who's really young and really emerging, but she's also a lady artist, which is awesome to start diversifying the space there. And so we're setting that up, and we're gonna kind of get her on board, get her exposed to the Ada Cafe. And that's the other thing too, is getting someone a really beneficial start, right? It's very different if you can come on all of a sudden. You can go to all the Twitter Space hosts and you can talk to everybody and make that entrance into this ecosystem better.
Get recommendations for who is friends with, like when you're actually friends with people and have been here for a while, you can know who is doing really important stuff.
Yeah, and honestly, like out of all like the people doing stuff like in the community, I'd say probably Ada Cafe has the most connections just because from everyone all the guys you have, everyone you have as part of the team, but also like everyone in the Twitter Spaces. Like I feel like you guys are probably talking to more people. Yeah, you guys are more plugged in, I think, than probably anyone, I think.
Well, part of that, to that point was like, I love the technology. Like my day job is in technology. Like I'm really excited about it. I think it's interesting. But you'll notice on, like, I always put Team Human, and Team Human's a really interesting book that I
I
read once,
agree.
and yeah, and it's amazing. Like, and it's the people, no matter what it is, there's nothing more important than the people. And that was really that recognition up front of, oh, like, we want to be and have the right people to start. And that was that kind of ethos. Because what Cardano does have right now, which is really exciting, is it's got civility, it's got respect, it's got this tone of, listen, we can disagree and we can talk, but we don't have to be sniping each other, and really just being nasty to each other. And that's something we want to make sure that kind of continues. And the downside of the growth that is coming is, if we're not careful and we don't stay ahead of that kind of how we want to talk to each other and work with each other, someone else will. And I don't know if it'll kind of keep this atmosphere, and we really want to keep that going into years to come.
We couldn't agree more
Yeah,
with
it
that.
seems like everyone in the community is on the same page with that, which is
Yeah.
what's going to keep it going. It's crazy. It's awesome.
And thinking, and like it seems like everyone's been thinking about that from the beginning, and we're understanding more and more how to actually take the steps that will do that. Because I remember at first it seemed really daunting, but now it's like, okay, actually, we just make sure that we talk about certain things, and we do it in our, let it start with us. Remember that it's not someone else's problem, and it's not someone else's job to deal with it. Like, we all make up how it gets dealt with.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, if you look at the diversity of the shows, I think that's also part of what was exciting.
Yeah.
Was you've got like Bullish Dumpling doing some really like hard hitting, let's dive into the facts. You've got Epoch's End, which is kind of it's just that staple. You've got like Flawed Beginnings, right? You've got Cardano Over Coffee, which is your daily show. You got RealFi for DeFi coming up, which is a super complicated thing.
Yeah.
And then you've got other folks like Annette, right? And like Annette is this Dutch, curator, gallery owner, artist, photographer, and she has a very different style. Cardano
the
Women,
one-
to make sure. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Is she the one who does the photos
Yeah.
on like
that's
iPhone? Like, she's like,
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
the iPhone
okay.
photographer. And you'll note, I mean, Annette is awesome, but you'll notice that she's one of the few that doesn't have a time. And she's like, I don't do
I love that, yeah.
I do it on my time. And I was like,
Awesome.
yes,
That's
you do
great.
you.
That's so cool.
But like Cardano Women, to make sure there's a place that, if that's a better place for women to start, great.
It's
Which
really
is, I know,
nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, we've covered a lot of different ground, and I think there's always sort of a place. So the each of the pages like has their own show, or has their own page that we'll build out over time. How do we aggregate and make sure the recordings get out there, whatever it may be. So we've started seeing some of that sort of shared services really pay off, which is hopefully going to build over time.
So as you see, as the space grows, obviously more and more Twitter spaces are going to be popping up. Is that, what's your plan there? Are you trying to capture a lot, or are you trying to keep it very tight and like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
curated?
great question. It's a great question, right? So at the moment, it's very curated, and the reason being is you got to start somewhere, right? We had to pick a cutoff
Build
point
the
of like,
foundation strong.
right. But you'll notice on the site, you don't have to pull it back up, but you notice on the site there's spaces that say cafe supported, and those are the ones that kind of we're working with at the beginning to try to say, hey, we're bringing this together, helping you make these pages, these sites, whatever it may be. But over time, I don't know what kind of decentralized organization the cafe will become, because DAO is just like a big, what kind of DAO, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But
there's
ideally, we at least hopefully could come up with some types of services or things that would help any Twitter space. But we are adding, Twitter spaces that we've seen stick around, that have been around for a while, that go up. I mean, that's part of the tension, right? Of like, if somebody starts one, great, but a lot of these folks have been doing it for months and almost since the beginning of the year. So there is this kind of like, well, we can't just add everybody, because you may start one and you may never do it again. But at the same time, if you are coming back week after week and showing it, at a minimum, we want to make sure you're on the site, that we show it's there, and at least get that exposure too, because that's really important. And even if it's not the quote unquote official supported, but TBD, I know we'd love to make it easier for any host that's talking about Cardano to do it.
I would love to have balanced living in the metaverse be on there for I mean, I'm sure Alyssa from Never Engine would think that was
I say, I mean, that's part of it too. Like I said, even though I've only like since being here since June, I feel like I've been here a long time. But then there's
Yeah.
this, like I said, there's this whole like crew of people. Like when I met
I
Jenny, I mean,
know.
Jenny's always giving me history. Jenny's always like,
You know,
don't you remember back in whatever? So I still have missed and I'm still learning all sorts of folks. But
there's so
yes,
much out there still, definitely.
yeah, definitely send it over if I'm missing an important one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Are you guys planning on sticking with the Twitter Spaces, or you guys like have any plans to branch out into anything else? Because I know like I feel like a big thing is like community. Like you guys are doing like a lot with the community. Is there anything else you guys have planned, or are you just focusing on the Twitter Spaces right now?
Yeah, so we have a Discord, so that's the other place that I think
Sure.
I imagine we'll probably want to Discord, right? Where you can do screen share and you can do those spaces and stages. You can do a lot more,
Oh
a bit
yeah.
more there. So we have thought a little bit about how to best kind of maybe utilize that a little more. And I'll give you just some insight into the beginning. We almost launched with sort of a more web-based, a little more approachable site that was more like a community site, just because as much as I'd love to say that Discord and Twitter are super user friendly, they're not the easiest for newcomers to really get into.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
I still think we have some idea of like maybe adding, I don't know, a forum or something that's a little more traditional web focus that I think is a little easier approachable. And then there's obviously YouTube, which is probably not for us in particular, but if Twitter Space hosts want to get into YouTube, I know some of them have that already, but don't know. But there is certainly that aspect of most people don't find Discord discombobulating, and I still do, even though I use it all the time. And Twitter's not for everyone, so there's got to be something out there that's a little more
I
of a good starting point.
I totally agree. And that is better for the type of discussion that is happening in your Twitter spaces. Like you want to have that be able to be followed up. And you're right, we don't have the best place for that yet. Like, yeah, I think
Yeah, and that's
that's
anyway. Yes, yeah. So that idea keep resonating with that. So maybe we'll do that sooner rather than later because I know there's Reddit. Reddit I find is just something that I'm oil and water with Reddit. I would love to be a power Reddit user. I just don't know. It just doesn't sit with me for some reason.
I love Reddit. I use Reddit as like my main social media, but they
I
do
know.
not like
It's hard to
NFTs.
put stuff
Anytime
out there.
and for some
yeah,
reason, like the Twitter community in general, they don't. They're like so
not
against
NFTs.
NFTs for some
Yeah.
reason. It's crazy. Like they're
And
like the one
Yeah.
social media where I see that, and I'm just like, oh
Reddit,
come on,
yeah.
you guys are my family.
yeah.
You guys should
Well,
like
you
it.
can. Dude, you could be the bridge, man. You're the
True.
bridge. We
I'm
need
trying.
bridges.
Trying,
Like that's
yeah,
the
Definitely.
cafe's a
trying.
bridge. You could be a bridge.
Well,
So
Tyler is the founder and
He
moderator of the
is. Rex
CNFT,
Labs,
Yeah, but
Cardano
or,
it's
NFT.
right? What's it
Or
called?
yeah,
Cardano
CNFT,
NFTs?
Cardano NFTs, but it's I just messaged the people from r/Cardano to have them help out because it's like I haven't
Oh,
touched it since like forever, so it's just like all
I
Started
spamming
it.
and stuff right
It's
now.
a
Yeah,
start.
that's right. Dang
Oh,
right. Yeah, I think it would be cool to have it be all, people that are in CNFTs anyway, just like new people. It would be more directed at what we are trying to talk about, I guess.
yeah,
Anyway, so that's cool.
I
yeah,
wanted to
no,
talk
definitely.
a little bit about that epoch clock
Yeah,
and the concept
Did we
behind
show
that
it?
and what the future value is. And I also was trying to find a link to the actual NFT,
I could
but
pull it up real
I
quick.
wasn't sure exactly where
I
to
was
go.
about to say, I
Tyler, you
can.
got
Yeah, I
it?
was about to say
And I
if
want
I
to hear
can.
about any other way to support Ada Cafe as well, like how exactly to do it.
Yeah, here, and I can with spaces. If you just put it in our Twitter chat as well, if you want to pull one up. Yeah, so I'll give you the quick. So one,
Yeah.
given that it's also the founder's token of the Ada Cafe, there's no promise of future value for legal and otherwise purposes. I should state openly here. I'm making no promises of anything of such sort. But more importantly, it is a pretty sweet thing, and there's been a lot of interesting ideas. So it is a non-fungible visualization. And so part of, I'll keep this pretty quick. And so, everything's an NFT, that's fine, but that's really hard because then if it's everything, it's nothing, it's everything, whatever. And so, it's like, well, what's the difference?
Oh yeah.
You can see a little bit more of it.
I didn't know you were sharing
yeah.
my screen. I thought for some reason you were sharing your screen.
No, okay. So the idea here is it's a type of NFT, and the idea is that there's a dynamic data source, which is some source that changes. It doesn't have to be real time, but that changes over some period of time. And then there's the visualization, and the idea is that's a non-fungible visualization. Now, what's cool about that is that this is our fully on-chain version of telling epoch time, or Cardano time, we like to call it. So you'll see the 5 at the top, 1, 2, 3, 4. That is the days, right? So when the clock strikes 5, that's epoch's end. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of came out of this idea of people kept missing epoch's end in general, like payday, anything. And there's like, well, why? We should see it. It's a lot easier to see than it is to kind of count down, right? But then the other idea is, well, we can keep the data source the same, and then we can make an infinite number of epoch clocks in this sense. And what we hope to do is make it really easy. There's an off-chain one coming here shortly, so may or may not be related to if you're a token and blah 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 blah. I'll let you read through the lines there. But the idea being is that we can make a lot of different visualizations for the same data. And we want it to not necessarily say we're the only ones who know how to visualize this. We want to make that data source kind of available, or like the structure, and let everyone else who's a creative person visualize it in their own way. And so there's a whole ton of use cases behind that requires sort of its own show and its own thing to talk about. But you could imagine though, like instead of being time, it's your personal health data. It's the price of ADA. It's your personal, whatever church, or it's whatever you want, right? Weather,
I didn't realize it was
you
going to
name
be
it.
that customized. Wow. Yeah.
So it's yeah. So the idea is it's like a structure, right? Data source, dynamic data source, visualization, and you can kind of have different data sources, and then you could have different visualizations, and they can kind of swap in and out.
And then you start to understand how long an epoch is, having it in your wallet, looking at it sometimes. You start to just like have a better sense of how long it lasts.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like this clock, for example, is a sort of analog clock, right? It's the clock face, and then it's a rotational hour hand. And I mean, you have to wait a while, but we're not going to do it here in a live show. But if you zoomed in, it's moving. Like it's literally live right now, counting down, right? And so, but you got to. I mean, I had to compress 10 minutes into 5 seconds to really show moving, just so you know.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to.
5-day clock.
Yeah, it is a 5-day. It is a 5-day interval clock. But actually, Cardania is on here. I would like to commission a clock. That is That is exactly what the point is, right? We're just showing one instance, and then we want someone else to tell that time better. Because even in real life, and time's an easy, simple, kind of common thing, even in real life, we all know there's sort of time, but there's there's clock towers, there's watches, there's Rolexes, there's Casios, there's, hourglasses. There's all sorts of ways that we tell time visually. Yeah, exactly. So we want to bring that to NFTs. Is that same concept of we're going to tell the same story a million times, and everyone else in the world is more likely going to tell it better than we are because that's where most people are. That's great. Yeah, so we want to give them a platform to do it.
True.
Very cool.
So
awesome.
Yeah, and if you want to find out more about NFVs in particular, the kind of sister site or like the site about NFVs is programmable.art. So what we're trying to do is explore. We know what programmable money is. But what's programmable art? And that's really the question we're after.
Have you guys talked with Artano at all? Because I know they're doing a similar thing. Maybe you guys could... Oh, it's on the website.
No good.
Oh no.
Have not talked to Artano, so I'd love to.
Yeah, I do. I thought of them when he was talking
Yes,
about
exactly.
this.
They have
Definitely.
INFTs.
That
or
Oh
change.
yeah,
NFT
you know what?
whatever.
Someone mentioned that to me actually. I would love to understand what they're doing because the someone mentioned that same thing, and I would love to make that connection. So anyone wants to help me
Yeah,
Yeah,
make
it's
that
seems
great
like
group.
connection,
y'all
I'm
are
in.
both
Yeah, because I
y'all
know
are
that.
smart
Yeah,
about.
working together always makes things better. So.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's great. I'm glad you brought that back up. I would love to chat because if we're doing similar things, then we should work together. That's for sure.
definitely.
Eric
Totally.
Anderson says that we needed a clock counting down to the
Yeah,
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 exactly.
yeah, that would
that
be
would be
sick.
amazing. Yeah, and we were
That'd be
talking
so
about
cool.
having clocks behind us in our new studio.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like,
Oh
how
yeah.
cool
Yeah.
would it be to have
So
like the
so
Cardano
the
clock?
Yeah, so we're gonna the off-chain clock's gonna be a lot easier to make cool stuff because we have more than 16 kilobytes to work with,
Right.
and so you'll see a lot more off-chain clocks soon, and with different types of clocks and all sorts of stuff. So, and we're obviously doing more than clocks, but time's fun. Why not? Um, and it's so much fun to live in Cardano time. Like it's so
Oh,
much
So
fun.
Yeah.
different.
It's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
great.
it's a whole different world. It's a whole different
Right.
experience.
totally. All right,
Anyway.
cool. Is there anything else you want to make sure we cover here?
No, we've covered a lot.
Yeah, we
I
got
think
some
it's
good.
good for one dose. But thank you so
Cool.
much for having me, and thank you so much to the audience. You're very loud and very boisterous. I appreciate that, and happy to get commission clocks. But no, just come check us out. Happy to have any of you any ideas. Let us know, and looking forward to watching the rest of the show.
And you
I
are.
do got one
Awesome.
idea. You guys should do a maybe in the future we could see an actual Ada cafe where we can all meet at and do
Oh,
Yeah,
don't
Cardano over
worry,
coffee.
I
don't
want
worry.
that badly.
If this works out, we have in our original
Hell
ideas
yeah.
written down actual physical Ada cafes for sure.
Amazing.
I can't
But
wait for
we'll see.
that. How can we support? How can people support you in the meantime?
Yeah.
What's the best ways?
I mean, if you like what we're talking about, the clock is on sale still for the Epoch clock. The now it's a little on the pricier side for NFTs in general, but there was lots of reasons for that. So totally understand that may not be accessible to everybody. So there'll be more clocks coming
It
once you
is
do it. But
420 ADA, yes?
correct, but there are only 690, and it is fully on chain. It is also the founders token,
true,
which will
yes.
have its own benefits
Yeah, of course.
as well.
I mean, it's up to
But
the
that
organization
said,
to set their price for their own founders stuff. That's totally
Yeah.
oh yeah,
And
yeah. But that said,
exploring something new.
just coming to the Discord, coming to the Twitter Space hosts. What you're already doing here, having us on, I mean, is great. And just, I mean, and even if you're just doing your own thing to getting more community on, even if we're just aligned partners, that's great. I mean, any of that is good. So as long as you're, I think, trying to keep that ethos that we're all trying to maintain, I'd consider that a win. But if we can help out, or you want to kind of come sit around the cafe with us, we'd love to have you.
Great.
All
I think
right,
that's
we'll
great
definitely
advice
stop
for
in.
everyone. Yes. Awesome.
All right, thanks again for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good one.
Sounds
See you soon.
fantastic.
Bye.
That cruise.